President Trump highlights lawlessness, violence, and thuggery. Democrats insist there is no lawlessness, violence, and thuggery, and call him a dictator for having the audacity to keep us all, including them, safe. They've learned nothing, and they think you are stupid, so they're still insisting that their deep blue Democrat-run hellhole cities are super safe and clean. The audacity, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, transphobia, fat phobia, January 6th. What did I miss?
Within the context of Donald Trump's racial politics and within the context of his effort to get Epstein off the front pages. I understand David's point, but when we try to treat this as a rational response, then we lose sight of the actual politics that's being played here. And he's actually trying to give his base red meat to get them off of the Epstein story, and it's on the backs of citizens in Washington, D.C. He's going to undermine the democratic process in the district. And so I understand what David is trying to say, but we need to be clear about what Donald Trump is doing.
Well, just as I predicted, Democrats are once again going for the don't believe your own eyes and ears ploy. It worked so well for them in the 2024 election, so why not double down on stupid, right? They've learned nothing, and they think you are stupid, so they're still insisting that their deep blue Democrat-run hellhole cities are super safe and clean. And how dare President Trump try to step in and make them better? The audacity, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, transphobia, fat phobia, January 6th. What did I miss? Well, the talking point memo went out. That's pretty obvious. With stunning ignorance and coordination, Democrats got their talking points, and by goodness, they're going to deliver it no matter how tone deaf and ridiculous they sound. President Trump says lawlessness and rampant crime is a problem. Democrats insist crime and lawlessness is a figment of our imagination. After all, only a dictator would want to protect a city of mostly Democrats from being mugged, attacked, carjacked, or only Trump deranged Democrats would argue against cleaning up a city they mostly inhabit just to about Trump. But joining me now with his take on this Liberal Tuesday is former Clinton NSC Staffer and Biden Deputy Staff Director, Jamie Metzl. All right, Jamie, I am afraid to ask, but do you want D.C. to be safer, or would you like it to continue status quo?
Yeah, I think every sane American, and certainly people living in cities like New York, where I live, has to recognize that we have a problem in this country with homelessness and lawlessness. So we need to address that problem, and we've got to do it urgently. It's my view, though, that we need to have an urgent, comprehensive response to this strategy. And I don't think that just putting a few hundred National Guard troops on the streets is going to do it. But I do commend President Trump for getting us to have this conversation, which we have to be having. I live in New York City. I live in the Upper East Side. Just go up and down on the 456 train. It really does not feel safe. Nobody wants to live this way. We've got to tackle this problem. But I think we do need to have a conversation about what's the best way to tackle it, because a lot of these people have mental health issues, substance abuse issues. We need more police. We need more law and order. But if we don't have a comprehensive response, we're not going to make as much progress as we can.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're at least reasonable and admitting that there is a problem, but you have to tell me, why are your fellow Democrats, why are they freaking out? You know, I showed the coordinated tweets there, but it was, one of a couple different things. It was, no, crime is actually down in D.C., nothing to see here, oh my gosh. And then it's, of course, the favorite, President Trump's a dictator. He wants to send the National Guard. He wants to increase police presence. He wants to federalize the police force because he's a dictator. So that seems to be the prevalent message coming out of your side. Why are they saying those things?
Well, on the crime issue, it's one thing to look at the statistics. It's another thing, like I said, I live in New York. Maybe the statistics are better, but that could be because people aren't getting arrested for petty crimes that they might have been arrested for perhaps in when Rudy Giuliani was mayor. So I think everybody who lives in any one of these cities, whether it's New York, D.C., Chicago, San Francisco, we all recognize there's a problem. And as I said before, it's a problem that must be addressed. You go to San Francisco, it really feels like zombie land, and that's really no way to live. And the costs of this decay are there for everybody to see, and you just see it in the decimation of a lot of these cities. Then the second question, as I mentioned before, is the deployment of our military in our cities the most optimal way of addressing this problem? And I think the Democrats and frankly other Republicans who are saying maybe that this tool is not perfectly matched to this need. I think there is a point there, and we have a tradition in our system of government of our military in most cases, other than dire emergencies, mostly being deployed for military style activities. This seems much more like a policing style activity. So I would rather bump up our police, bump up our enforcement, do all the things that we need to do to clean up our cities. But again, kudos to President Trump for getting this urgent issue into the public square more prominently.
Yeah, so the way I see it is President Trump is doing what he can, right? So he sees an urgent problem.
He can do a lot. President Trump has a whole lot of powers. I mean, we are seeing him using executive orders more aggressively than any president since FDR. And so it's not that President Trump only has one tool, and that tool is the U.S. military. The President Trump has lots of different tools. And if President was going to say, we're going to enhance funding for local police, we're going to have a comprehensive strategy for mental health, for substance abuse.
Yeah,
there are
Jamie,
a lot of things the president can do. I hope he will.
Yeah, that all sounds great. I want more police too. But you realize, right, that when you have politicians, leaders, or a president that simply says, well, we're just going to have more funding, and then we're going to have a comprehensive this, and we're going to have a task force to address that. That all sounds good, right? But to the single mother that's walking home alone from her waitressing job, the task force and the we're going to increase funding BS, it doesn't help her in the moment. Yeah. But you know what Jamie?
I'm not for a task force. And we had, people gunned down these wonderful people working for the Israeli embassy, one or two of which were U.S. citizens, gunned down in broad daylight in Washington, D.C. This is totally acceptable. I'm not for task forces, but what I do think President Trump could have done, and in my view should have done, is to say this is a huge problem. We're going to have an executive order calling for 20 different steps to try to solve it.
Yeah.
But if in 3 months we don't see major, very significant progress, I'm going to call out the military. So to use the possibility of the military to put pressure on this other system, I think that would have been a better way, because just getting a few hundred more troops in military fatigues who aren't trained in any of the police functions that they'll be carrying out, I just don't think it's going to make a huge difference. It may be better than nothing. If you are that single mom walking home and you see that soldier, you're going to feel better, and that's great. But we have a big problem. We need to solve it.
There is a huge problem, and it's not going to be addressed overnight. But overnight, what you can do, to your point that you just made for me, is that if you're fearing for your life and you see more safety and security measures being deployed, and you have the presence of people who are there for your protection, you are going to feel more safe and you're going to be protected. When you have a little rebel rouser 17-year-old who thinks it's cute and funny to carjack people, and then he sees a National Guardsman or woman standing there, I don't know, Jamie, something tells me he might think twice about carjacking the woman or the family.
I don't know if you've ever spent any time in Beijing or Cairo or North Korea, where I've spent a decent amount of time. There are soldiers on every street corner, and it's pretty clear that this show of force is going to be absolutely transformative. a few hundred National Guard troops in a city as big as D.C., and D.C. isn't huge, isn't going to be that kind of North Korea style presence. So like I said, it's symbolic, and it's symbolic both of a problem and of a president who's saying we need to solve this problem. But just having a few hundred soldiers isn't going to do much. But I think we need to do much. And so let's take real actions that it may involve soldiers, it may not, but it's certainly police, substance abuse, talking about bail reform, which is a huge problem in New York. In New York, the police don't even bother to arrest people for petty crimes. And that's why all of our pharmacies are shutting down, because people are just walking in and with calculators and then taking $700 worth of stuff and just walking out. It's totally unacceptable. So as you said, I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal Democrat, but that doesn't mean that anybody should accept the kind of lawlessness that we're seeing. America needs order. But I just don't think getting 300 or so additional soldiers on the streets of D.C. is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, if he sent 1,000, then the Democrats would bitch about that too. So I think it really comes down to Democrats who are not as reasonable and sane as yourself, Jamie. They're going to complain no matter what President Trump does. Yeah. And he's going to protect people either way. But, forgive me for asking this, but I'm wondering, because you describe yourself as a liberal Democrat, sure. Would you agree then that electing liberal Democrats doesn't seem to be solving this big problem that we both agree exists?
So I really don't like the progressive Democrats, the far left Democrats. I'm in New York. We have Zoran Mamdani, who's the leading candidate for mayor, who wants to globalize the intifada and control of the means of production, who's trying to incite racial tensions with white people. I'm totally against that. This is insanity. It's self-defeating. We have reasonable and crazy people in both the left and the right, in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And it is my view as a Democrat, centrist Democrat, who's spent my entire life working with centrist, reasonable Republicans, that we as Americans can come together to solve real problems using good old-fashioned common sense. I don't know where you're from originally, but I hear a little twang in your voice. I'm originally from Kansas City. And in Kansas City, that's what we do. We say, hey, what's the problem? Let's solve it. And we need to get that back in America. Frankly, we have crazy people who are sprinkled throughout our society. Shame on us if we're listening to them, and kudos to us if we can come together and say, what's the problem and what's the best, fastest, and most efficacious way to solve it?
Well, I think President Trump did that yesterday. He said, what's the fastest way I can solve this? And he's doing that.
But I would say best.
Yeah, but Jamie, you understand, right, that your party, unfortunately, they're not made up of centrist Democrats like yourself, and they don't want to lock anybody up. In fact, they want to go over to El Salvador and get illegal aliens and bring them back to this country. Like, that's how cuckoo nuts your party is. But you realize that, right? They don't want to lock anyone up. You can't arrest your way out of crime. Everybody deserves 35 chances, cashless bail. The teen degenerates, they should just be let out. Don't give them tough love. Give them a candy bar. I mean, your party doesn't want to solve this problem.
So our party isn't really a party. It's a coalition of different types of people. And so certainly there are people on the far left of the Democratic Party who I think are nuts and are dangerous. And there are people on the far right of the Republican Party who I think are nuts and dangerous. And that's why we need to come and solve problems. Bail reform is a huge issue here in New York, because the police don't even bother arresting people because it's like a turnstile. You come in and then you leave right away. So I'm not saying that. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be on board because I'm a Democrat having to accept every view of every Democrat. And if I was a Republican, I wouldn't accept every view of every Republican. We have a problem in this country, and we have a problem of crime. We have a problem of homelessness. If I thought that putting a few hundred National Guard troops on the streets of Washington, D.C. alone would solve this problem, I'd say, well, that's a great strategy. But I don't think that. I think it could be one piece of a of a bigger approach. So let's have a conversation about that bigger approach. It seems like this National Guard deployment, it's going to happen anyway. So the question for us is, well, what happens next? If we're trying to create a space for more and better things to happen, what can we layer on top of this? It's easy to name call, it's easy to scapegoat, and certainly it's part of our human psyche. But the way this country was built, the way that we won the Second World War, the way that we won the Cold War, wasn't by stoking divisions. It was by sensible people coming together and saying and asking, what is the problem that needs to be solved? And then working together to solve it.
That sounds great. Your party has shown no willingness to do that. So I'm glad they have.
There are people. Yeah. So again,
name one who's a leader of your party that wants to work with President Trump.
Rahm Emanuel is somebody who's saying a lot of sensible things. Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, is saying centrist, sensible things. Wes Moore, a personal friend of mine, is doing a great job in Maryland. So I think it's too easy
you think
for us
is a great place?
To name call each other,
and it's
certainly easy to. What's that?
Baltimore's doing well?
No, we have huge problems in this country across the board. It's the easiest thing to do is
Jamie, why do you think that is?
To name call.
But no, it's not name calling. It's pointing to the reality. What happened with the Democrat Party is the Democrat Party decided they didn't want to lock anybody up. They decided they wanted cashless bail. They wanted activist DAs. They wanted to let everybody out. They wanted to try for rehabilitation, which is great in theory. It works for pit bulls. It doesn't work for degenerates who want to kill and hurt people.
So I would, if you haven't already seen this wonderful film, Sing Sing, I encourage you and all of your viewers to watch. We need to send more people to Sing
Sing. We need to send more people to Sing Sing.
You obviously haven't seen the film. Just do me a favor and watch the film and let me know what you think. I don't want to just give up on people and lock people up. And frankly, if locking people up is our only strategy, we're going to have to become an entire country of prisons. So rehabilitation, it's part of our judicial system. It's part of our ethical code. I completely agree that the far left of the Democratic Party has gone insane. That's why we have far left lunatics like Mamdani, like the candidate running for the mayor of Minneapolis, who's the brother of the guy who kidnapped Tom Hanks. This is crazy. And we certainly should say that these crazy people, are not the face of our party. There are also people like me who are centrist Democrats, who have lots of friends, who are centrist Republicans, who are trying to just be common sense problem solvers. And we need to find those avenues to do it. Again, the easiest thing that we can do is to demonize people on any other side and to pretend that there's just a uniform enemy and it's the other guy. The harder thing to do it, and it's much more difficult to garner social media likes and all this, is to say, how do we come together to solve problems? So I'm a Democrat. I'm critical of President Trump on some things. And when President Trump does things that I support, I am highly vocal in support of those efforts. And that's what I want to do now. And again, I think we can all recognize that we have a problem of homelessness. We have a problem of crime in our cities. We have a problem of fentanyl in our country. And the way that we're going to solve it is by coming together and solving it, not by mindlessly demonizing each other.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great in theory, but once again, I will reiterate, it doesn't seem that anybody in your party is interested in doing that. So maybe
but I don't think that's correct.
Well, okay, but you can't tell me who is.
You're talking to one right now, so obviously...
but with all due respect, Jim, you're not leading the party. So
I know.
I said this yesterday, too. I actually initially gave D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser some credit because I saw her on the Sunday shows. And whereas she was saying it's not as bad as people think, disagree, but she was saying, I'm willing to work with President Trump. And she was saying that, and that was her message. And then she must have gotten the memo from somebody that she had to be anti-Trump. And so then yesterday she comes out guns blazing. This is awful. This is like a threat to democracy, blah, 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 blah. So you had somebody who I thought maybe was a little bit reasonable, and then they were told by someone, or they had an immediate change of heart that they had to be anti-Trump. So I don't really see anybody leading your party that, to me, seems like they want to work with President Trump on anything. Now, I'm not disagreeing that there are reasonable Democrat constituents who want things to be done. I agree with you on that point. I don't see a leader of your party that's stepping forward right now and saying, we agree, let's work together, let's work with President Trump. Because all I've seen, and there are countless examples from every leader in your party, of saying this is a threat to democracy, he's federalizing the police force, he's a dictator, crime is not that bad. That is the resounding message. And you say, Jamie, it's the far left. It's not the far left. We're not talking about the green hairs with septum piercings. We're talking about the run-of-the-mill Democrat leader who's saying these things.
Yeah, so what I do think is happening is that there is a danger of the far left taking over the Democratic Party. That's why the race here in New York is so significant. And that's why Democratic centrists like me are pushing so hard back against this madness. And again, there are many others like me, and there are many people who are on what I would call the crazy train of wanting to globalize the intifada and control the means of production. And certainly for me, when President Trump does things that I like I was highly supportive of the military strikes against the Iranian nuclear facilities, I'm extremely public. There are also Democratic leaders who are extremely public. On the issue of crime statistics, I think every reasonable person in this country, Democrat or Republican, recognizes that our cities aren't as safe as they need to be. And some of them are really downright scary. And certainly at times, San Francisco, Chicago, Washington. I mean, there is a real problem. But certainly for me, I am, as I said before, I don't think putting federal military troops on the streets is going to do much. And so my feeling is I agree with President Trump that there's a problem. So let's actually solve the problem. As I said before, we're now having this conversation because of what President Trump did. It's a healthy, important conversation. But rather than trying to force ourselves into pro-Trump versus anti-Trump, let's say we're Americans, we're patriotic Americans. How can we come together and try to solve this problem? It can't be solved with military alone. It's going to need other things, regardless of what happens with this D.C. deployment.
Well, Jamie, I love your spirit. Maybe it'll spread. Maybe it won't. I want to have the optimism for you, but it kind of feels like you might be alone in that endeavor. I want to move on to what I feel is more hypocrisy from the left on the remapping, the redistricting. And I know that you're going to tell me we should work together. That's not going to cut it for this. I want to play your governor, Kathy Hochul, being caught in her hypocrisy by the wonderful Fox News crew. Let's take a listen.
Okay, you know, obviously, that those maps that came about the last time for redistricting were caught up in a lot of court battles there in New York. Here's how National Review summarized it. They said it was only 3 years ago that New York's Democratic legislature drew up a map so brazenly contemptuous of basic rules that govern a district's contiguousness that the state's Democrat-dominated Court of Appeals threw it out. The New York Times at the time called those maps comically contorted. That's their quote. So your state's highest court at the time, all the judges appointed by Democratic governors, they threw the maps out. So fair to say Democrats have done what they're now accusing Republicans of doing.
No, we followed the rules. We do it every 10 years. We base it on census.
But the court said you didn't follow the rules.
Well, we did follow the rules.
So the court was wrong?
Well, we followed the rules.
She can say it as many times as she wants, but I love how when they're given just indisputable evidence that they still sit there. And Pritzker did the exact same thing. In fact, not on a conservative network, being grilled on the laughable hypocrisy and the gerrymandering that's been done in Illinois. And his answer was, well, we got to save democracy. So you got to tell me here, I think Democrats might be misstepping on this issue as well.
Everybody is misstepping on this issue. We have a total abuse of redistricting by Democrats and Republicans alike. When the founding fathers created our electoral system, the plan was for Americans to get some kind of fair representation. And Democrats and Republicans alike have weaponized this redistricting in states where the Republicans are in control, like in Texas right now. They're trying to weaponize it to decrease the number of Democratic seats. And in states where the Democrats are in control, they're trying to weaponize it to decrease the number of Republican seats. This is nuts. This is no way to run a government. Democrats and Republicans are equally guilty of this redistricting. And again, I'm not going to defend this crazy efforts to have politicized redistricting. But what I will say is if we have this chaotic electoral system, which is corrupted by both redistricting and the out of control campaign finance system, if you even want to call it a system, we're going to lose our democracy. And so I know that that you, and I respect you for it, take a very strong pro-Trump view. Nothing wrong with that. He's the president. I didn't vote for him, but he's my president. He's president of the United States. But I think we have to take a step back and say, what will it take for our democracy to function as well as it can? And I think that if we have a system where if any party controls a state, they get to redistrict that state to screw the opposing party, that's just not an effective way to run a government.
I agree with you, but you do see that we haven't seen this wailing about it until Texas did it. So that's the thing.
Yeah, so
Jamie, let me finish.
She said.
No, let me finish. Yeah. I didn't hear anybody, I didn't see Republicans fleeing Illinois and going to another state and having a temper tantrum when Illinois did their ridiculous gerrymandering. I didn't see New York Republicans flee the state when Democrats did it in New York or in California or anywhere else. I didn't see the theatrics from Republicans. I agree with you that this whole concept of gerrymandering is done by both sides and it's shisty, but we didn't see this outcry to stop it until Texas did it. So you see where Republicans like me who are like, okay, wait, you guys are only willing to call the balls and strikes when it doesn't benefit you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like a convenient time to blow the whistle.
Yeah, I hear you. Basically, the party that's getting screwed has kicked and screamed in every state where this has happened. Is fleeing the state, is that a novel approach? Maybe, but basically every party that's gotten screwed in this system has had a temper tantrum. And so, we can criticize the response, but I think it's much more helpful and constructive to admit that this is a crazy system. This is no way to run a government.
But this is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I agree with you, but it does seem a little convenient that now the Democrats have already done it with amazing success in Illinois and New York, elsewhere, that they've gerrymandered the absolute crap out of their states. Now they're saying, whoa, wait, let's stop right now. It's like,
Yeah, but it didn't. This issue didn't start with those states. This isn't a story of three states.
This is an issue now.
Many states. It's happened over time, and again, both Democrats and Republicans are guilty of it.
Where was the outcry?
People like you, people like me, who are patriotic Americans first, we should just condemn this behavior wherever it happens. And whoever is doing it, because it's antithetical to the values of our democracy.
Stop now that Texas is doing it. So that's why it feels very convenient.
My thing is, if it were up to me, we would have either through the Supreme Court or through Congress, we would have some kind of ruling or law that created a fair system for the districting process to be guided by the census and not be so fully politicized. It's outrageous that it's become so fully politicized.
I want to offer a compromise. You and I are not lawmakers, but here's my compromise. I think you're right. I think we do need to step in and say, all right, the gig is up here. We're going to start doing this fair and square in every state. And every state, we're going to redo it all. We're going to start over because everybody has done this, and now we're going to do it fairly, and we're going to have some kind of a guardrail to make sure that the people in these states, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are represented fairly. Now, here's the kicker.
We've come together. We've
Jamie,
made peace.
Here's the kicker.
Yeah.
We're going to redo the census, and illegals don't count. Are you on board?
Well, so for electoral representation, illegals don't count anyway. So certainly illegal. So no district should get additional congressional votes because it's like, if you could imagine a district where there's one U.S. citizen and 500,000 illegal aliens, you certainly, it would be madness to say, oh, that district should get a full U.S. congressional seat. So do we need to count whoever's in this country as part of our census? Yes.
But they should not count towards population totals. They should not count.
Wait, hold on. Should illegal aliens count in the allocation of congressional representation? I think the answer to that is clearly no.
Well, once again, you are on the other side of your official party line, because the Democrats, by and large, are arguing that they want the illegals to count in the apportionment, and they want them to count not just to know how many we have.
Yep.
God, I would like to know how many we have too. That's a great idea,
Yep.
so we can deport them. But I want to know if you are in favor of the fact that if they do this and they exclude these illegals in places like especially California, might lose some seats there based on the actual population.
I'm not here to be a blind partisan for one party or another. I'm here because I'm a patriotic American wanting to find the best answer for our country. And so absolutely, I believe that the census should count everybody who is in our country, legal or illegal. And absolutely, I believe that illegal aliens should not be counted in the apportionment of congressional representation. And both can be true. And there is no official, I wish that the Democratic Party were some kind of party where there was an official party line, or there was someone who could pick up the phone and say, hey, it's the Democratic Party calling. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the Democratic Party is a coalition of a bunch of different stuff. And so for me as a centrist Democrat, I have much more in common with my many friends who are centrist Republicans than I do with the crazy people like Zoran Mamdani wanting to globalize the Intifada and control the means of production while living illegally in a rent-controlled apartment. So I'm not here to defend any kind of orthodoxy or any kind of party. But what I am here to say is we're Americans. We're these practical people. We've done incredible things over the last century by being practical, by solving problems, by coming together when we need to. The easiest thing that we can do in this age of social media is divide ourselves and then be guided by the extremes of the left or the right. The most sensible thing that we can do, the thing that we can do to save our country, is to come together and, like we do where I originally come from in Kansas City, say, how can we very practically solve the biggest challenges we face?
We could talk about this for a long time, but just to keep it real brief, you keep saying the extremes on both sides. What would you count as an extreme on the right, or a mega thing that you would count as an extreme position?
Oh, there are a whole lot. One of just saying that we should incarcerate everybody. We just can't. We don't have the prison space for doing that. I think that there has been really what I see, even though there are huge problems with our universities and problems with racism and reverse racism and all these kinds of things, anti-Semitism, I think going after the academic base, the academic foundation of the success of our economy that was set by Vannevar Bush and others in the immediate post-war years. There's a whole list of things that I'm uncomfortable with. But again, that's why we have a political process. A political process is about coming together to solve problems. And I think that, frankly, anybody who's in any party who can't think of a few things within their own party that they can publicly criticize because of their own personal views is playing a different role than we need informed citizens to play.
I'll give you one that I think is an actual Republican or conservative party tenet that I think might be too extreme, because I can think of one, and that's the abortion bans. So that's one where that's one. So I'll give you that one. I actually gave it to you. But the other ones, like people who commit crimes should pay the consequence and be in jail for those crimes. Illegal aliens should not be allowed to be in this country or work in this country. We should have a safe and secure border. Women's sports should be for women. I can't think that,
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree
but
with
your
that.
party thinks that that's extreme.
I don't know who the Democratic Party is. Let me give you
That's a
another
great question.
example.
You're exactly right.
So
Me either.
I think there's all kinds of people in all kinds of parties. So I agree with many of those things. Let me give you another example. There was a media report yesterday that had done a lot of research that found that the Trump family has become $3.4 billion wealthier since President Trump returned to office in January. That is troubling to me. It should be troubling to all Americans.
That's not a policy.
What's that?
You might say, I don't like this. I don't like, Hunter Biden and Burisma and the pay for pay and pay for play and the Clinton Foundation. There's a lot. If you want to go into all that, we can go into that.
Yeah,
but that's not a public policy position.
We don't need to go tit for tat, just because my feeling is I'm not here to defend everything that President Biden did. As you mentioned in your intro of me, that I used to work for President Biden. I also led an effort by former Biden staffers. I drafted a petition demanding that he not seek re-election because I think his decision to do so was a threat to the United States of America. I could care less about
you saw the cognitive decline. You saw the cognitive decline.
Everybody in America saw this.
Well, your party didn't. They told us it was a cheap fake, deep fake.
If you didn't see it before, everybody saw it during the debate. In my view, again, I'm not here to defend any one party. It was nuts that President Biden didn't drop out of the race the night of that debate. Everybody in America, we all have parents, we all have grandparents. We've seen what happens when wonderful people become incapable of functioning as they have in the past. Everybody in America saw that. And I think you're exactly right. The Democrats have a dissonance problem because people in America are seeing one thing, and then they hear Democrats saying something else. And there's a dissonance between that. And that is why the Democrats, in my view, have done so poorly and are continuing to decline. The average American person in Kansas City, their primary issue is not transgender bathrooms, but the Democrats have become this party of identity politics, and it's just a lot of people. So again, I'm not here to defend the Democrats. I have massive criticisms of Democrats. I have massive criticisms of the Republicans. But there's a reason why we don't live in the Egyptian Empire or the Roman Empire, and that's experiments in governance like this fall apart. And if we don't want our nation to fall apart, name calling isn't going to be the answer. It's going to be how do sensible people come together to solve problems. And you've identified very real problems. Our porous border is a huge problem. President Biden wasn't fast enough to address it. And President Trump torpedoed the bipartisan legislation that was agreed upon by members of Congress from both parties in order to counter it. If we want to point fingers, we have to point fingers at everybody, certainly including ourselves. Nobody is perfect. That's the entire point of American democracy, is that nobody's perfect, but maybe if we come together, we can build a better future together.
Well, you have a very optimistic outlook.
I'm stuck with it.
Yeah, and I would also say this, after talking to you for roughly 38 minutes, I don't think you're a Democrat. I think that you're edging towards Republican. You're a little R. You're growing into a big R, but you're a little R.
Well, I know coming from you, I take that as a full compliment because I think that means that you like me and I like you. But
what I will say, even if you were a Democrat, by the way, I just want to throw that out there. But I'm just telling you, it doesn't seem like, to me, it doesn't seem like you're a Democrat.
So what I would say is I'm a Democrat in a certain democratic tradition.
Okay.
And it's the tradition of Bill Clinton. It's the tradition of Franklin Roosevelt, who really saved our country. But I'm fighting, I feel, for the soul of the Democratic Party. And I hope that I have many friends who are Republicans who feel that they are fighting for the soul of the Republican Party. And I think that's great. And for me, these are just labels. It's not like somebody gave me a card or I wear a hat or whatever. I'm a Democrat. I'm registered as a Democrat. But if there's and as I said before, when President Trump does good stuff, I'm the first one to very publicly praise him. When he does stuff that I disagree with, I'm the first one, or I hope I'm the first one to say, hey, this doesn't seem right to me. Is there a better way to do it? And that's what I'm saying now in the context of deploying federal troops in D.C. President Trump has done a great job highlighting a very real problem. And you don't need the statistics. You can just go outside in any of our cities and you feel it to be true. Mm-hmm. But just deploying troops, federal troops, isn't going to solve that problem. Again, the way we do it in Kansas City, let's come together. Let's solve these problems.
Well, it also sounds like you probably shouldn't be in New York, and I have a feeling if you guys get your
I
communist
love it here. You should come visit.
Yeah, I go to New York every week. Listen, and I can't wait to get back to Tennessee, God's country.
Well, my brother lives in Tennessee, and Tennessee is a wonderful, wonderful place. But the good news for us in New York is that your famous Tennessee chicken has gone global.
Well, that's great. And let's just hope communism doesn't go global, because you've got your top mayoral candidate who's really pushing it in there. I appreciate you for being sensible. Again, I would say, I know you don't like labels. I'd rethink yours. I don't think you're a Democrat. But listen, if you want to say you're a Democrat of yesteryear, that's fine, Jamie, but I don't think you're a Democrat.
I think of myself as a Democrat, but there is a struggle going on right now for defining what a Democrat is. If the Democratic Party is the party of Zoran Mamdani and the guy whose brother kidnapped Tom Hanks on the boat, that's not a party that I want to be part of. So if that is where our party goes, then I'll say, all right, what's the right home for me? The reason I'm a Democrat and is that I believe in the promise of this country, and I believe that is founded in individual liberties, in government playing a protective role for people, and in government empowering people to innovate, and a recognition that even the wealthiest people in America didn't get there on their own. They got there because of the contributions of so many Americans, because of the school systems that used to be great and now are in a rapid decay. And we need to fix all of these problems. And I don't think labeling ourselves or each other is going to help us solve these problems. But for the 10 trillionth time, coming together with sensible people to solve the problem, that's what it's going to be.
Well, listen, I don't know if you're going to get many Democrats on board with you in that mission, because they, quite frankly, hate Trump supporters. But I will say,
but maybe I think you're so sensible. I have a feeling that there's a little Democrat lurking inside of you.
Your side thinks I'm a far right fringe lunatic. Your side would label somebody like me extreme right wing, because I'm like,
again, I'm out of the labeling business.
Well,
but I've enjoyed our conversation. And maybe you've made me a little more R, and I've made you a little more D.
Definitely
and you know
not.
what that makes us? That makes us better Americans.
You definitely have not made me any more Democrat, but I will take credit for making you a little bit more Republican.
You're stuck with it.
No, I'm here willingly, but I will tell you this: I think that, and I gotta go, but I will say in closing, just my final elevator pitch for you: the Republican side, we love America. We love the working class. We love individual liberties. And we're also, Jamie, better looking. So think about it.
Can I say, I agree with all those things. And if we're just using the two of us, I don't think anybody watching this show could conceivably believe that I am even remotely better looking than you. So it's a pleasure to be on a program with somebody who brings me up because of your beauty and your thoughtfulness. So thank you.
That's very kind of you. Please come back, and God bless you for your sensibility. I really appreciate it. Thanks
My
so much.
pleasure.
All right, folks. The biggest reason Democrats will continue to lose elections outside of their deep blue hellholes is that they think and treat the American people as if we're stupid. And I have some final thoughts. Democrats suffer from such severe and debilitating Trump derangement syndrome, they will argue, and fiercely at that, to keep D.C. in lawless squalor just to oppose President Trump. I gotta say I was hopeful at first that D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser had seen the light. Though she still downplayed the peril in her city, she was at least willing to accept some help from the federal government and President Trump. But that was Sunday, before she no doubt got the memo from the powers that be at the DNC and the Trump Derangement Committee that she had to change course, that she had to put her own constituents at risk and fight the help, all just to showboat against Trump.
My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Ah, yes. If residents and visitors of D.C. are protected from being accosted, mugged, jacked, or killed, then democracy is at stake. Or worse, if you're scared, get over it.
If people are afraid to come to D.C., go to Disney World, get fat, eat French fries. I don't care. I've lived here 37 years. I am not afraid. I live in the city. I'm not afraid of this city.
Wow, how empathetic. And though D.C. has a higher murder rate than literal third world hellhole countries, our president shouldn't do anything about it because at least it's not as bad as 2023. What they're really saying is even a shocking and staggering number of homicides or other violent crimes are negligible because a couple of years ago, it was worse. They use this same stupid argument for everything. Let the illegals rape and murder. U.S. citizens commit more crimes. Just look at the graph. The protests that result in mass burning and looting are mostly peaceful. Men don't have an advantage in women's sports. They're just lucky. And it's a coincidence that despite the eyeliner and ponytails are also 50 pounds heavier with more muscle and bone density. Joe Biden wasn't a walking vegetable, cheap fake, deep fake. Behind closed doors, he was doing a triathlon. And most recently, the girl that was curb stomped by a mob of black people in Cincinnati had it coming. I mean, for the love of God, give it up already. These people will play Russian roulette with your life as often as they need to if it means going against Trump. You are collateral damage in their game of TDS. They think you're stupid, but there's one thing that's foiling their little narrative on a national scale, and that's social media. Whether you love him or hate him, Elon Musk freeing Twitter and allowing for the free flow of information on X, that's changed the game. Democrats are used to controlling mainstream media and social media, and when they can control and manipulate the narrative, they can more easily control and manipulate the public. But too bad for them, they don't have that power anymore because we the people have the power now, and we aren't going to be hoodwinked or bamboozled by their BS anymore. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live, 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes on Outkick and Fox Nation. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. For more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Just click right here so you never miss a beat. I will be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.